The next question types that we're going to look at are function questions. Now, similar to the meta questions in the reading module, these questions aren't so much asking you what a passage is saying, but rather what particular sentences in the passage are doing. So go ahead and read this passage here. You'll notice that we have two sentences or two quotes in boldface. Your job is to decide what roles those play. Pause the video and give this a shot. Okay, maybe you don't share my taste in music, but let's have a look at this question nonetheless. Once again, our goal here is to decide what each of these sentences is doing. And in an argument, any sentence really can be categorized as one of two options. Either it's evidence that supports a conclusion or a claim or an argument, or it's the conclusion itself, right, which is supported by evidence. So let's look at these two sentences and decide whether they're evidence, conclusion. We'll find out. Okay, so we start off by saying, while Italian disco is generally forgotten as a genre, it was quite significant in its international reach and legacy. Is this a conclusion or is it evidence? Well, it's actually a conclusion, and here's why. This claim that Italian disco was significant is supported by what comes next. And we know because of this word, for instance, right? So what comes next is the evidence that supports this original claim. So that tells us that the first sentence is a conclusion and the second one is evidence. Okay, now let's look at the answer options and see which ones align. And to be clear, the answer options won't necessarily say conclusion or evidence, but they'll use similar language, right? Instead of saying evidence, maybe they'll say support or proof. And instead of saying conclusion, maybe they'll say claim or argument. All right, so let's take a look just at answer option A here. The first is a claim. Conclusion, claim, yes, same thing. That the author refutes? Not so sure about that part. I don't think we're refuting anything, but we'll hear it out. The second is the support for the refutation. So certainly the conclusion evidence part matches. It's a claim and then support, but the issue is that we're not refuting anything. So answer option A is out. B, the first anticipates a critique. What is anticipating a critique? Well, it means looking ahead at what someone might argue against. And we're not really doing that here, but again, we'll read the whole thing. So anticipates a critique likely to undermine the author's argument. And the second is the author's main point. Well, that's out, right? Because the second sentence, as we said, is evidence. The first is an acknowledgement that the author's critics make a valid point. We don't talk about critics in here, but again, we'll hear the rest of it. The second is an example that supports the author's argument. So yes, the second is an example that supports the author's argument, but nothing about critics in here. So that's out. Okay, the first is a conclusion. Well, I'm on board so far. Conclusion drawn by the author. The second is an illustrative case, aka an example or evidence, supporting the argument. I like this one. And then finally, the first is the author's main point. Yes. The second is an intermediate conclusion leading to a larger inference. That's a little bit of word salad here, so let's break that down. An intermediate conclusion is, think of it like a stepping stone. So if I say, if X is true, therefore Y, and if Y is true, therefore Z, right? So that middle piece of evidence, Y, is both the conclusion of the first argument and the evidence for the second one. But that's not what we have here, right? This is a very, very clear-cut case of evidence and conclusion. So answer option E is out. The correct answer for this one is D.